My 1971 Honda CL450 Scrambler in topaz orange. I had this bike for not quite a year yet. Bought it from a good customer of mine, my friend Andy. Really nice, sweet running bike. Love the black stripe on it. The Scramblers are some of my favorite Hondas with their up pipes. And the biggest reason for doing that back in the day, as I was told, people that were riding these in the countryside kept causing grass fires, is get the exhaust up and away from the ground. Because as you can tell, it's kind of more of a street bike than a dirt bike, obviously. It's made for like maybe a mean rock road, or maybe to run down the field entrance to look at fields or something like that. But the differences between this and like your regular CB450 is your Scramblers always have a drum brake. And it's a pretty strong one for the vintage time. It's a double leading shoe. So it has two actuators to run the leading edge up against the drum, which makes it a whole lot stronger. Of course, as we talked about, up pipe. They also have motocross style handlebars that are braced in the middle. Fork boots. And the rear shocks do not have any sort of a cover on it. The springs are exposed. This bike has about 7,000 miles on it. And I'll probably end up going ahead and pulling it apart and painting the frame and putting new rims and spokes on it, because it's really nice. He had a guy paint it and did a fantastic job. These black stripes on this gas tank, they're not a decal. Those are actually painted on. And they are just perfect. And this thing looks really good out in the sunshine. One of the neat features about these that most people don't realize is all the CB450s and the 500T, they're double overhead camshaft. And this engine came out around 1965. And it was like light years ahead of anything else around it. This thing was putting out good power for its size and keeping up with the bigger British bikes in the 650 range. And they didn't shake themselves apart. And they had an electrical system that actually worked. Plus they come with electric starter. And of course, backup kickstarter. Something else really neat about this engine, you don't have to take the valve covers off to adjust the valves. Well, I mean you do to run the feeler gauges, but you don't have your normal tappet adjusters. You actually break this loose and turn the center, and your rocker arm shaft is on a cam, and that will push the finger on the lifter down against the valve. So it'd move it closer or farther away, and then you'd slide your feeler gauge in, accessing it there on the valve covers on the back. Plus, these don't use valve springs. There's no valve spring on it like you would think of, not a coil spring. It uses a torsion bar like a Chrysler front suspension would use. And that allowed it to rev really, really high without any valve float. And that was a unique design, and the only Honda that I know of that actually used it. It still works well, because later on down the road, this thing's pretty old and she still runs good. 9300 on the red line. I put a video on of this thing being dynoed. Revving at that high doesn't do you any good. It's pretty well done making power around 7,000 to 7,500 roughly. These had a different tank than the CB. It's a little more slim and trim. The seat was just a little different. And it's kind of cool, it flips up. And it has a little kickstand. So that gets you access to your battery. Air filters are underneath these covers. Has one for each side. Constant velocity style carburetor. Then they also have a neat deal on that where you don't take the float bowl off with screws. It has this little bail and it just snaps off and on like a master cylinder reservoir on an old car. fire her up. These rev pretty quick too. So there you have it, Honda Scrambler.